Welcome to PowerUp podcast, the podcast that seeks to empower and dismantle, giving us the power and confidence to question, deconstruct, rebuild, and expand in life. I'm your host, AmaRouge, voiceover and multidisciplinary artist, well-being advocate, food and book geek with over 14 years of movement-centered experience.
I am your host, Mesma, artist, choreographer, yogi and coach with a passion for alchemy, creativity, transformation and workplace wellness.
We recognise that we can't dismantle and empower or be empowered without first learning ourselves, diving deeper to unlearn the harmful, restrictive and unprogressive. It's an ongoing practice and journey for us all, which is why we created this podcast.
Our show features guests doing the work to enlighten, deconstruct and power up in their own magical ways.
We're going to be having conversations around the power of healing, transformation, well-being and creativity, and how they feed our personal and collective evolution, how they help us power up. Today we are joined by a really good friend and an amazing human being, founder, fashion designer, artivist, Nike guest designer, celebrity stylist, arts and creative director, TASLIMA Khan, or as I know her, Taz, and maybe many of you know her as Taz. Taz's pronouns are she, her. She designs, she pattern cuts, she sews, she styles. She is the one-woman team. She is TASLIMA K. TASLIMA Khan is a creative professional whose self-taught sewing led to BA Honours Fashion Design and Marketing, bringing together her creative life with her passion for human rights activism. TASLIMA K is a label with a purpose to make a positive impact in this world. And we are so happy to welcome Taz to the show and to hear a lot more about TASLIMA K and about her journey and about what she has planned to share with herself and all of us. So welcome, Taz. So happy to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a long intro to my life. I haven't heard that for a while. Thank you for the reminder.
It's all you. You did it all.
Yeah, so inspiring.
It's nice to hear someone else say it. So.
Isn't it? Ella and I felt like that when we did a session where we interviewed each other and we read each other's bios to each other and we were like, oh, wow. It's really different when you hear it read to you by someone else. Yeah.
There is a level of awkward as well. Like I felt like I needed to dance while I was having it read. Like, that's me and I can't keep still.
I did that. I did a little shimmy while she was saying it.
I think that's our British slight like self-deprecation, whereas I think if we were Americans, especially New Yorkers, would just be like
big up
the whole time.
100%, like cheering themselves on, which is needed. It's needed. I actually just got back from America and I enjoyed that a lot. The confidence there. I was like, I'm here for this. Like, celebrate you every day.
Right.
Every day. It's needed.
And just the levels of positivity to one another. It's so inspiring. So Taz, you describe yourself as an artivist and describe TASLIMA K as a luxury conscious fashion label creating awareness and education on social issues through fashion, engaging fashion and politics. Can you tell us a bit more about the TASLIMA K label and how it began?
Okay, so that was several notes. I'm going to try to word it in the best way possible from what I remember. So first, I think you asked me about myself being an artivist.
Yes. Just 3 questions in one.
Not a big deal. 3 questions is nothing, right? So artivist is something that I came up with in my head, but then I've kind of started to see that it's being used. It just started to spread, I guess. But for me, artivist was how I would describe my life overall, being a creative, working within the creative industry, and then activism was just something that I was brought up around. Growing up, my dad was always working with communities, charities, and I think it kind of was installed in me. So I used to work with charities and NGOs and go and bunk off school and go to a protest, and and I did things that I didn't realize at that time, being 15 or 14 whenever I left school, um, to go to a protest was part of activism. And even
Mm.
working with charities and NGOs in school, um, I didn't realize that was activism. So it was installed in me from a young age. But then once I graduated, I joined, I was invited to join this leadership course, in a sense. They're called Uprising, and we worked on different social action campaigns, different projects around, and I then worked with different charities and NGOs to work on several campaigns. But I studied fashion design and marketing at university, and I come from a dance background as a professional dancer, acting, modeling. I would draw, I would sketch, I would design and make clothes. So, me as a person, I was very creative. I am very creative. And then I had this other side where I was very politically aware.
Mm.
I would work on campaigns that was on mental health, that was on cultural diversity and inclusion within companies, within CEO positions. I would work with politicians on campaigns that affected young people. There was just so many elements of politics I had, but then that crowd that existed within that side was very different to my creative industry side.
Yeah.
I would see that there wasn't enough women of color there. There wasn't enough women. And then when you break it down to women of color, there wasn't that many of us there.
Mm.
And then there wasn't enough people of color overall, men and women. Um, Basically, me being one of the few that was invited within the parliament, within different events that I got to experience, that was just a separate life. I was basically living two double lives. And being in those two sides, I realized there was a gap, or there was a connection of me where I really enjoyed this social action campaign side and activism side, but then I'm a creative. And
Mm.
within creativity, we do tend to work on a lot of things that affect us socially, and creative outlets are the best form of education or awareness for me. And I thought, okay, let's bring the two together. Stop living a double life, make it one. And I came up with TASLIMA K, which is a luxury conscious fashion label, creating awareness on different social issues through fashion. That was the purpose. I wanted to create education through a form that I found very comfortable for me to speak
Amazing.
through, and connect with all generations rather than one specific type of people that were invited to
Mm.
these exclusive political movements. Because for me, I see that if you have an opinion, you are involved in some form of politics. And politics is something that affects all of us.
Yeah, very true. And that often we don't realize that, or we think we're not empowered to be a part of politics.
Yeah.
Exactly that. And there is a
Mm.
closed door events that happen that doesn't include everyone.
Mm.
But there's a gap. The gap is that within that side where you have politicians and campaigners, charities, and NGOs, they want to deliver these projects for people that are within the community, but then the community doesn't have that connection with them. So there was a middle ground. And I thought, because I'm living this double life, they tend to use people like me and other people to be the communicators between the two. And instead of allowing someone else to do it, I kind of wanted to create my own space, which would educate people through the arts
Yeah.
and make it more relevant to a younger generation where we all wear clothes. It speaks some form of body language of who you are. You can have a personality, you can have a character, and you can tell loads of stories. So I wanted to tell stories through fashion.
Yeah.
Working within social action campaigns, I was very keen on having something that is a conscious brand, something that isn't going to affect the world that we live in. I wanted to be able to change and create a positive impact, be it the way that it's made, the materials that's used, the process it's done, so it doesn't impact the world like the fashion industry does with the hugest problem that we have, which is climate change. That's why we have such hot weather in UK right now.
Yeah. I remember your the collection that you had, which was kind of like the beautiful all white collection. Actually, there was some camouflage in there, I think, as well. And that it was very, it just had this beautiful etherealness to it, was also feeling clean in terms of its lines and its silhouettes and playing with volume, which I personally love. And I remember your shoot for that as well, which was just gorgeous, which was all women and it was outside in nature.
Wow.
And there was a real sense of sisterhood. Anyone who wants to see it, the link is in the show notes.
Did you shoot in it, Amma?
No, I couldn't. Taz did invite me.
I did
Yeah,
invite
Taz did
you.
invite me, but I couldn't. It clashed with something else I was doing and I couldn't go. But Taz is in it, and lots of other incredible women. And it's just gorgeous.
I was just going to plug in the fact that the models that I use as well will be people that I know, people that have stories of their own, which I find that, okay, real human beings that have such impact of their own, who are
Right.
incredible or talented in the sense of the lives that they live. And I love to use women of color so that it could be a diverse range where you get to see people that look like you. It's more authentic, and they all are incredible women that I'm surrounded by. I'm blessed by. That's why
Yeah.
I asked Emma to be part of it. but it's I feel that when what you said about going and taking that step of creating a space, I think when you come from many years of being within the creative industry, you learn through the process that sometimes there are things that are just not available for you yet. So you have to create those spaces so that it can exist. And I think within the creative industry, we specifically women of color or people of color tend to feel that, okay, you know what? I'm going to be the one that's going to do it. And I think I've learned that mentality and that strength to be able to create my own processes or go somewhere that I would feel uncomfortable, but I want to just step out of my own comfort space to learn
Yeah.
something new and be open minded. And through all of those processes in life, I feel that I was then ready to be able to create my own. I don't
Amazing.
think if I didn't go through all of the stuff of like being a basketball player, then to dancing, then to working behind the camera um, as a stylist and art director or acting or modeling. I just feel like every part of my life and every single journey is what made me me. And being comfortable and confident with myself is what allowed me to believe in myself to create something else, create a brand,
Beautiful.
which has been a long journey and a process since 2012 when I left university. So I don't think it's something that happens kind of like, oh, okay, I'm going to do it. It has been a process of it doesn't exist. Okay, I'm going to make it exist.
So amazing. So that's 10 years. In 10 years, you've done
Ooh,
a lot.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't do maths, but I know that math. I did that math. Proud of myself.
You do it real quick, real quick. Quick maths.
Thanks. Amma knows how much I'm like, yeah, that's a big deal for me.
Kudos.
I even had to think, and I was like, no, yeah, you're right. Damn. 2012 to 2022. Yes. Yeah. Damn, I need to do something now. So 10 years.
Yeah, you definitely need to celebrate that.
Yeah, you do. And you've recently just dropped your newest collection, Addict.
Yes, which I've been enjoying this morning.
Which is completely different from your previous collection. Can you tell us a bit more about Addict and what the inspiration behind it is?
The inspiration was actually lockdown. Lockdown and climate change and waste of fashion. So throughout the pandemic, I was kind of I just had loads of fabric. I just had loads of samples and old clothes that are unworn and stuff. So I was like, okay, cool. Next fashion week's coming up and I want to do something different. I always want to create something different during Fashion Week rather than having a traditional fashion show. And one
Mm.
thing that I saw that didn't exist was a live studio. So I decided that I would create a live studio, and a friend of mine generously was well, we had a meeting, and he had a store in Soho, on Compton Street, Old Compton Street, and it's such a great location, massive store, a very
Yeah.
creative space that I was like, yep, I'm bringing in my live studio. I've got 13 interns. That was incredible. 13 fashion students, and I'll come back to why I had them. But I wanted to have a live studio within 5 days of Fashion Week, well, the week of Fashion Week. I would create a whole collection that would be made so people would come in and see, like, there was a pile of material. All the material was from my previous collections. So all the leftover materials that I
Gorgeous.
always store because I don't throw away fabric. I don't like waste. So the whole
Yeah.
process was about zero waste. So
Mm.
I used all the old offcuts from previous collections that I've had, two other collections I've had, and then unworn clothing and old vintage pieces that were donated. So I had all of these pieces, and we created a pile of fabric dump. So people would come in and see that, and then had the live studio. And through that process, I had 13 interns. The reason I had the interns was that I wanted these fashion students to actually have a hands-on experience during London Fashion Week.
Mm.
And what
It's
happened when
great.
I was at uni, it was that I realized that I just didn't get enough experience.
Mm.
So I wanted to be able to help them understand how a collection gets made. So I was kind of trying to do too many things at once, which was learning curve. But what happened
But
was,
kudos for you as well for
Yeah.
thinking about how can I open the way for others as well. You
yeah,
know, not only do me, but how can I give others the opportunity to learn and to grow?
I feel like it's needed and it doesn't happen enough.
Mm.
Because all these brands are so massive that they just kind of forget that there's these young people that are going to grow into these designers, or they might be key value people that come into your company and do something great for
Mm.
Yeah.
you. So if you don't train them, then how will they be able to do that? So I literally taught them the whole process that I do when I'm creating my collection. So from concepts of mood board, I already had all of these ideas, but I wanted to kind of help them um, experience it basically. So I wanted to use 80s, 90s hip hop culture and
Yes.
um, from the prints, from the silhouettes, grabbed that. So we had all these magazines and created a whole mood board at the back of the studio, and then from there went into designing. And I told them what it is that I want to create, how many pieces I want to create. So then started to design, get them to design pieces, and then we'd look at them and then start taking little bits from each element. I already created a collection design, but I wanted them to again learn. I already made half of the collection before, but I allowed them to work on the half that was left.
Great.
So
Wow. So empowering.
so then started to pattern cut, teach them how to pattern cut. I didn't realize all of this stuff takes time when you have to give someone else the time. to learn these
Maybe
elements.
even let them go wrong sometimes, I wonder. Did that
Yeah,
happen?
went wrong quite a lot of times. I'll come back to that bit. The sewing skills went on 100, and it was, things were getting made and things were getting cut wrong. And then at the end of the night, they would go home and I would stay and correct all of these things that they weren't aware that I literally had to sit there, unpick
Wow.
a lot of the garments and then re-sewed them. They didn't know this, and I didn't really want them to know this because I didn't want to kind of deflate or unmotivate them. So it kind of was just like, okay, but I would tell them when they made a mistake so they were aware, so that they don't go and repeat the same things. Or I would tell them, you know what, you're better at this moment. As we're running out of time, how about you work on this? I kind of
Mm,
started to learn and pick up whose elements, what was their elements. And with, some of them would use hand needles, and then some of them would use the sewing machine better, or some of them were better at cutting. So little elements would be able to separate each of them. Even got them to do the marketing and social media elements. So they all kind of got to 360
Great.
experience. And because it was a live studio, there would be people coming in talking throughout the day and they would get distracted. It was a lot of things happening at once, so I learned a lot through that process. I don't regret the experience. I think now I know how to do it better than I've done it.
yeah.
So there is
And that is
other
quite
plans.
groundbreaking.
Yeah, because it's never been done in the fashion industry. And yeah, so it was like my first live studio that I was able to
Mm,
create, and no one's done it within London Fashion Week.
yeah.
So
Wow.
I don't think actually they've done it in any fashion week. But yeah, it was a incredible experience. Yeah. I wanted it to be educational, fun way of explaining what zero waste is, what
Hmm.
sustainability is, because I think what happens as well, that sustainability has become quite a fancy way of living for some, and
Hmm.
then it also kind of separates people of, okay, I can't afford that because sustainability is expensive, or the designs are boring, so it's not relatable for me. But I think
Mm.
Hmm.
slowly we're getting to a point where sustainability is becoming a lot more accessible, and that's what I want to do.
One of the things that sticks out for me a lot from the experience that you just shared with us is learning on the job. You created this amazing vacuum for others to learn, students to learn, participants of Fashion Week and members of the public to come into your live studio and learn about the process behind the final garments, but also for you to learn and to learn on the job, which actually as creatives, I think a lot of our learning comes from the doing process, the learning on the job, whilst things
Hmm.
are unfolding and whilst we're making it happen. But there is this idea, I think, from creatives as well, because I'm definitely guilty of this, and people outside of the industry, that they think you have all of these ideas, they think that you know everything and you know how to do everything already, and then you just arrive and all the magic comes out of you and then it's all perfect at the end. But actually it's not like that. There is truth in that, but there is a lot of learning that happens on the job, and that comes through trial and error. And so it's just that's a beautiful standout for me in this process, and that you allowed yourself the grace of that as well, that practice.
Yeah, yeah. I felt overwhelmed and actually proud of myself at the end of that, because I think yeah, I mean I didn't get to breathe or sleep or um go through that, and then uh someone close passed away as well. So there was a lot of things happening at that time, and I don't think I could really take in everything. But then at the end of it, I took a moment and I spoke to loads of friends and stuff, and they came and they saw throughout the days, and I had a whole film footage and everything, and I was like,
Amazing.
damn, like you created something that was in your head, and it flourished way beyond what I expected it to be. And I was able to communicate this that I've been trying to communicate for 10 years, what sustainability is and what how it works 360 in terms of even who makes the clothes. I think we speak a lot about like the fabric, or there's a lot of greenwashing that happens. So for me, I like to now stay away from the word
Yeah.
sustainability. I work on conscious. I prefer the word conscious because I don't think anyone
Hmm.
that creates fashion is sustainable.
Yeah.
Sustainability would mean that you would
Mm.
stop doing any form of making, producing right now, right? So that's sustainability on 100%. Sustainability for me is that right now, what we're all conscious
Hmm.
brands. What we are able to do is work with what we have. So I don't want to produce something that is starting from scratch unless it's biodegradable or has a shorter lifespan where it can go into the ground and then you can use it. But recycling plastic, recycling stuff like that, you're actually just still in the process of making stuff that is still not good for the environment. But the collection and this whole journey overall, what I wanted to share was that yes, these people that come from these universities or these institutes are able to feed into learning physically with companies. And this is like the process of them having within their CVs training so they can actually get a job at the end. That's sustainability within the fashion industry. Then to actually make clothes from fabric that are just leftover offcuts, that's zero waste. Instead of throwing that in the bin, I put it into a collection. I actually created a haute couture piece that took a longer process of hand stitching squares out of these materials that was left over. A dress. That was hours. That was 2 days of 3 days of sewing, hand sewing. That's luxury. That's a luxury piece, but it's from offcuts, leftover materials.
That was really nice to think about sustainability in that way. Um, Interestingly, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about sustainable fashion or conscious fashion was because of my experience with H&M's conscious brand and realizing how unconscious their conscious brand was. So it was really interesting to. I actually did a comedy sketch about it because I was like, we have to talk about these things that go on within fashion that are really hypocritical. But just, I'm so grateful for brands like yours. And for me, that was a really big awakening of I'm on the journey of I don't want to buy in high street stores that are not conscious anymore. But it's a process, but to have people like you who are raising the awareness, it can be really like, so it all came because I ripped a pair of trousers and was like, holy crap, I need to go and teach a class and my bum's hanging out. So that was kind of this process of like, and then like, where can I go that's actually conscious? Um, but I wonder just for people on this journey, people like me who are at the start of this awakening, do you have any kind of advice or any thoughts for us?
Yeah, I think shop smart, but not with greed as well, because I think we require everything and we can't wear the same clothes again and again and again. I mean, there's a thing called washing machine, or you can hand wash, or there's I bought it, so I'm gonna wear it however many times I want to wear it. I think we need to
Right.
culturally change that. I think it happens with social media and whatever.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, you're allowed to repeat clothes. It's your clothes. You don't have to have a brand new
Yeah.
outfit every day, or every event that you go to. And get creative. Get creative. Get creative, like you would with anything else. Just add something else, change your styling. Find brands that make clothes, or that are a bit more conscious, or even so the last pop-up I had was at Shoreditch Box Park, and I had a little store where I had my sewing machine and I offered upcycling. So you could actually bring in your old
Amazing.
pieces and I could actually remake them. So that's another avenue, or even learn how to sew. Like,
Yeah.
just simple things. Like you said, you ripped the back of your trousers. Hand stitch that back. Create a little detail on there, or just get some patches and make it into something
Love
else. Make it
that.
into something else. And if you don't want to do that, you can find someone to do that. There are people available.
Yeah.
You can come to me. So there's ways of doing things. If you really want to delve into a lifestyle that you want, you're able to do that. It is a process because it is convenience. And I think within the Western world, that's what it is, because I would say in most global countries everywhere else, be it Africa, Asia, like I could specifically speak of Africa and Asia, that they get things handmade. Their clothes are tailor-made. They have loads of
Yeah.
tailors. And they also actually take their clothes and rejig them and turn it into something else, because you can. So that and they understand the value of it as well. And not having,
That's it. Yeah, I was just going to
yeah,
say that value and that love for that thing, you know, that loving your product, not knowing it's a cheap thing that you're going to wear for one night, but actually loving that thing that
yeah.
you
What
have.
else? How else can you wear it? Okay, so I come from a stylist background, I guess, but I've turned several of my dresses into a skirt. And when I say I turned it into a skirt, I didn't really cut it or anything like that. I just put the strap down and put it in and tucked it in and put a belt on it, a
Yeah.
shirt over it. Like, yes, okay, not everyone
Yeah.
has the mindset to do so, but there are people there that you can get advice from. But don't.
Even I often notice Amma doing this like magic with clothing and making a whole wardrobe. Like, you know, when we were in Portugal together and you made those outfits, you made each day, things just looked so beautiful and so different.
Ah, thank you. From a small like capsule collection of outfits. Yeah.
Just don't throw away your clothes or leave them hanging around your wardrobe. Yeah, just don't throw it away. Wear it more. Wear what you bought. Use your money properly,
Thank you for listening. You can connect to us and our guests via the links in each episode's show notes. Before you go, we invite you to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the goodness to come. And if you enjoyed today, perhaps tell a friend to tell a friend. We are always grateful for you, our listeners, for our fabulous guests, and to everyone who has contributed to and been a part of our journey here.
Our music is by Tomo Carter. Everything else is brought to you by us, the PowerUp Power Team.
I'm Mesma.
I am AmaRouge, and we are PowerUp Podcast.